Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. We're doing a do-over today with Eugene Robinson and Kid Nate here from Bloody Elbow. We're doing an
Yes.
MMA tete-a-tete. We're going to be talking about UFC on FX7, Bisping versus Belfort. We're talking about the exodus of fighters from Strikeforce to the UFC, who's in, who's out, and Bellator's big upcoming season. Also, a couple of fighters who may be headed from the UFC and or Strikeforce to Bellator. That's going to be our first topic, Eugene.
Yes.
Rampage Jackson and Josh Barnett. Yesterday, Rampage went off and said on the UFC media call, no less, I'm done. This is it. This is my last fight with the UFC. I didn't even renegotiate.
Yeah, right.
What's the deal? What's the deal?
Well,
What's
okay.
going on?
First of all, you say this is a do-over. Are you going to edit in any of that stuff before, or is that in the toilet?
It's lost. It's
Okay,
lost.
all right,
Eugene.
good.
We got to
So,
start over.
all right,
Fresh start.
all right, so then I don't
Feel
mind.
free to repeat yourself.
I do
I will.
anyway. No, I mean, I made the claim earlier, and I'll make it again now. That there's a certain generation, the bonding link between the UFC of old and the UFC today is a certain character guy that doesn't exist really, well, maybe exist on the periphery of MMA, but doesn't make it too far in the organization because they're pains in the ass to deal with, and that's the don't give a shit guy. You know, the guy with a personality defect of some kind, or I don't consider it a defect personally, except that it makes it hard to get along in life. This is very different from the clubhouse cancer, the not give a shit guy. A lot of guys, their personalities drove them to fight in the first place because I don't care. Well, you know, you guys come across the street again, and you'll what? You know, I'm the guy who goes across the street. You know, if I get one more peep out of you, I'm the guy who says peep, you know? And I mean, Tito was that kind of guy. Even when he gets cleaned up and washed up in his TV and he's smiling, he's all clean, and he's still fundamentally a hunting the peach guy. Why do you think traditionally he had the problems he had with Dana White? Because Dana says this, he goes, what? Who are you? What do you think? You're better than me? I got to take advice from you? I became a fighter specifically so I don't have to deal with kind of stuff like this. So Rampage is getting, you know, well, how am I eating? Well, I'm eating because Reebok gives me a nice big check. That's how I'm eating. You know, you do realize I'm sitting. I don't want to crap my own bed here, but I'm sitting covering the fight, cage side for somebody else. Me, who is not MMA Journalist of the Year.
Not yet. Not this year.
Yeah, not this year. Is sitting cage side, and Joe Silva runs up to me. You know, I love that piece where Dana calls him the most curmudgeonly young man he knows. You know, he comes up to me and he says, take your shirt off. And I go, well, I hardly know you, sir. And he goes, you can't sit here with that shirt. I go, it's a T-shirt. What are you talking about? And I look down and for the first time noticed that I have a T-shirt that's got skullgame.com on it. You know?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's a fight apparel company. He's like, you can't have. And I go, well, what do you want me to do? He goes, well, can you cover it? I go, what, like this? Sit there the whole fight like this? I'm in press row.
Inside out, Eugene. Turn it inside out.
He suggested inside out. I go, so you want me to spend 5 minutes shirtless, cage side, while I change the shirt? And I said, you know what? I tell you what. You give me, I'll wear any shirt you give me. And the specter of having to give me something for free, he goes, all right, look, just sit down and keep your jacket covered. You know? So it's not an oversight that they have told Rampage that don't want him in there. What they should have said is, oh my God, you know, we got to deal with Nike.
And that's the thing. They're not letting Rampage wear Reebok stuff into the cage or on any UFC broadcast, and that's his sponsor, so it costs Rampage a lot of money.
It costs him money, and there's a communication breakdown. But in this instance, even though I'm sure he thinks it's the organization's fault, maybe it's the organization's fault for not communicating better with him. But when I was editor-in-chief of that men's fashion magazine, Code, constantly continual battles with Nike and Reebok because of they have in their contracts the amount of magazine pages you have to have between them, and it's pretty much like the maximum you could possibly have, which means without buying the front and back inside covers, they effectively need to have the front and back inside covers to not. So it's a pretty tight contract no matter who you are. And in this instance, I think that Rampage is in an uncomfortable position, but the UFC is not in a position to be making any. What is the UFC going to say to Nike that means anything to Nike? You know?
Yeah. The UFC has a deal with Nike. They're going to stick with that. I mean, you know,
somebody should have done due diligence. I don't know that it was a fighter, and I don't know that it was a UFC's fault. Unfortunately, Rampage it tears the scab off of, you know, a general feeling of being unloved and appreciated, and so he's done. And he's done, you know why he's done? Because he's huge in Japan and probably can still fight there and make a bit of a scratch and probably fight easier fights, you know.
Probably so, but the Japanese fight scene has collapsed, and that brings us to our other mystery man, Josh Barnett, who's somebody else. You know, the UFC released a list of 20-some-odd Strikeforce fighters that are coming over to the UFC. Josh Barnett not on that list. And Bjorn Rebney of Bellator, you know, in an interview said he was very interested in Rampage Jackson. They made it pretty clear that Rampage would break their models, but they were willing to go above and beyond for Rampage.
Right.
He said, man, we're not interested in Josh Barnett. We haven't been talking about Josh Barnett. And Josh Barnett's a guy who got $250,000 to fight Nandor, Guillermo, whatever his last name is. No, apologies to Nandor, dude. I forgot your last name, but I remember your first name. It's Nandor, and you got smoked in one round, and I don't expect to see you again. But
I have to tell you, Nandor is not a common Austrian name, my friend. You don't. Nobody's talking about Nandor Hitler. You know,
it's true.
It's not a common name. So, but whatever. I like it. It's up there with Zoltan. You know, like the Hungarian Nandor is Zoltan. You know, so it sounds like it's a name. It's a planet.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Hungary, not a Slavic nation, for anybody that was wondering.
Hey, good for you. And it's also. Actually, Polish is the most difficult language in the world, technically. But
I thought Finnish was.
No, that's a lie. That's a damnable lie. But Hungarian, there's something super weird. It's supposed to be the base root language. Of course, a Hungarian person told me that, so I don't know whether to believe it or not. Base root
language. Could have been another one of their self-aggrandizing nationalist
schemes. One of their schemes. But anyway, I mean, Barnett, you know, like we were joking earlier, like a baby-faced assassin, man. You got to, you know, Josh the Punk Thompson has dropped the punk when he became like 35. Josh's not 35, but you know what I mean.
He hit 30, yeah.
Yeah, there's a long
36.
Yeah, there's a long in the tooth factor with Barnett. And he's also a don't give a shit guy. So at the point when
big way,
yeah, you know, he said in the cage, I answer to no master. Again, you become a fighter for very specific reasons, and this is one of them. You know, you don't tell me what to do, and you know,
up to and including don't take performance-enhancing drugs, apparently, in Mr. Barnett's case. But like you said earlier, he's been clean for nigh on 3 years. So,
yeah, he has been clear. And, you know, with all the guys who are getting medical dispensations for TRT, because my testosterone is naturally low. That's how I got to be 260 pounds, Mr. Todd Duffy. You know? Come on, man.
Todd. We're all praying for Todd in his struggle against
his valiant struggle. Right. No. Come on, man. But whatever. Okay, we're gonna Josh Barnett is a great addition. You know, but Josh Barnett, I'm a catch wrestling guy. I love the catch wrestling aspect of the game. You know, I like his whole. I don't think it's as clever as a Chael Sonnen, but I like his whole pro wrestling heel thing. You know, I like the guy she trains with, Eric Paulson. I like the whole. You know, I like that he's got the marquee body. You know, people look at it, but what, that guy's a fighter. You know, but the reality of it is he's also been uneven. Like I thought he looked terrible against Cormier.
I think that was more Cormier than Barnett, but nonetheless,
Cormier has a skill. Yeah, you know, he might have that skill of making good fighters look terrible, but he did look terrible. But he looked great in other fights. But you know, again, I mean, is it worth the headache? I don't know.
And the money. I think the X factor there is does Spike TV want Barnett on Bellator? You know, I think Rebney's in a situation now, kind of like Scott Coker was, where he was with Showtime and CBS, where he's no longer his own master. Viacom owns Bellator, and I think if Spike TV really wants Josh Barnett, because he's another guy like King Mo that they could do a TNA, Josh Barnett can wrestle. He can be on, pro wrestle. He can do the the sports entertainment bit on TNA and be on Bellator. And to me personally, I think that would be pretty exciting. I think Josh Barnett's style is a little different. I haven't watched the TNA product, so I'm not speaking from an informed place. I'm not a good pro wrestling fan. I apologize to anyone that is for a variety of reasons. Including
I was from 1977 to 1985. That's it.
Pretty much my same era there. I was a little younger than you, but yeah, I didn't make it to the Hulk Hogan thing. I tuned out before WrestleMania, but I was big on NWA, man. Tommy Rich, Terry Funk, you know.
Baron von Raschke, the Claw, yeah,
Yes, yes,
Chief
yes,
Jay
yes.
Strongbow, all these guys, yeah. So,
Yeah,
um,
the tragic family of brothers that all killed themselves from Dallas, and now I'm forgetting their names,
right,
David and
right,
Carrie Von
that's
Erich,
right,
the Von
right,
Erichs.
right,
But
right, that's
anyway,
right, yeah.
I think there's some opportunities there for Bellator with Barnett that Rebney isn't thinking about apparently, and so we'll see.
Well,
But
this is no, but this I mean, keep in mind what is that old expression about when Gentiles do business, they say,
uh, looks like the gnomes of Zurich froze you out, Eugene, as soon as you said
and
Gentiles.
then when Jews do,
See, the conspiracy is striking again. As soon
it
as you
went
started
out.
talking about Jews and Gentiles, you went out, Eugene. Let's just take that for what it is.
Oh man, who the
Could be.
Bilderbergers are
It could
stopping
be.
me? No, I mean they say the Gentiles will go, oh, screw it, we won't do it, and they say, but the Jew says, screw it, let's make this work. So I look at it as a beginning of a negotiation. Will Barnett get to a prideful place? Well, he likes my column in Fightland apparently, and as a result of it, went on Joe Rogan's show. It was like saying that he wanted to beat up Steve Albini, which I would actually, I love Steve Albini, but I would love to see that fight.
Sure.
I would tip in $45 for the pay-per-view of Steve running and fleeing and Barnett chasing and beating.
Yeah. I think Albini would change the frame of the game, though. I don't think.
Well,
I don't like his chances of fist fight.
Well, you know what he would do? He's a genius. He would do this like chess boxing thing, except he would do fight billiards. So we play billiards and then we fight, and then he would clean you up because he's a phenomenal. Sorry about that. It's my phone. He's a phenomenal billiards player. So
Be that as it may, my money's on Albini in the long war on Barnett in the fist fight. I would have to say.
Especially if they start. But so I'm not saying that what Rebney has said and what Bellator have said. I'm not saying that they're going, this guy is more trouble than he's worth. I think there is some. I think people are negotiating, and if he's prideful about it and goes, screw these guys, I am, a Hall of Famer, I don't deserve this treatment, then he'll be at home or or training
in
or
Japan.
doing whatever he does. But but if he realizes that this is just the beginning of a negotiation, they might be able to make some purchase. But backing up the truck for any 36-year-old that expects the truck to be backed up for them, it hurts me to say as an old guy, forget it. Because you got it, like Evander Holyfield said, they have to pay me $40 million. Yeah, you know that because you've been around. If I can get a 22-year-old phenom who's happy because I bought him a Jetta,
or a Rolls Royce, be that as it may.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell what I'm used to. Because he got him a Yugo. Man, you got me a Yugo.
Some of our younger listeners aren't going to know what a Yugo was, Eugene.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. It comes from a country that no longer exists.
So let's talk some happier news, though, because we do know some guys that are coming over.
That was happy news.
Well, I mean, I was talking about the unhappy news of Barnett and Rampage both being up in the air, not coming, Rampage not coming back to the UFC.
I don't think Rampage wants to fight, man.
He might not, man. He's been fighting for a long time, and I'm sure that's hard on the body. And honestly, I think
he's got over 200 fights. Over 200 fights.
That's a lot of fights.
And he's got.
And I think he's got some acting and different talents. I think he's going to have to learn to conduct himself in a more restrained manner, say, with certain media professionals. But I think.
Oh, you're talking about the Karen Bryant thing?
Not just Karen Bryant, just any number of things. Like, Hollywood people want to be relaxed on the set. That's all I'm saying. And unless you're,
except the guy could be, he could be like a line stepper, an edge pusher. I mean, there's a little the frisson of having like things be slightly uncomfortable. But you're right. When it's a guy that big, you want to feel generally comfortable with the guy. But
yeah, you don't want to end up, I think War Machine left a scar on the San Fernando Valley porn industry. Right. They're probably not going to be hiring any more MMA fighters after he beat up the entire valley in one party. So, the word.
Hold on, I didn't hear this.
You didn't hear this? Oh, it's a long story. War Machine was shooting porn for a few weeks, and he went to some party. It was alleged that he and his girlfriend, also a porn actress, performer, we're having some troubles. The other guys at the party took offense, blamed War Machine. Next thing you know, it's War Machine versus the entire San Fernando Valley, and War Machine won. That's how I heard it. This is secondhand. Everything is alleged.
You know, I used to work sort of kind of quasi in that industry, and I'd gone to...
Keep dropping the references.
Yeah, I can't... With this
you're not sharing links, though.
Well, hey, man, I wasn't on-camera talent.
Oh, I see.
So I'm at this party, and I got my leg, like I'm walking with a cane because this woman, the Kung Lee, kicked my leg in two. So I was rehabbing, and I walk in, and I get to this party. This guy comes up to me. He goes, hey, what happened? And I said, well, I was fighting. And he was, fighting? You won't believe who I am. I go, who? He goes, I'm Oleg Toktarov's cousin. I train here. And I was like, wow. So I'm talking about training, talking to the guy fighting, which is kind of comical given that there's a lot of talent in the room, And then he's Russian, right? Starts drinking. Drinking. And then he says, I know I'm in trouble when he says at one point, the conversation is a lull. He goes, you and me, we're the only real men in here. And the next thing I know, he's throwing ice at the bartender, with people, some professional football players there. He's like facing the guy, and I keep trying to get away. And every time he sees me like hobbling away, he's like, hey, where you going? And he brings me back.
Oh, not good.
This is how it happens. War Machine fights the whole place. I'm not saying it wasn't his fault. I'm just saying, things get out of control quickly when people know you're a fighter. So, but digression.
Yes, definitely a digression. But let's talk about the guys that are going from Strikeforce to UFC. Daniel Cormier going to fight Frank Mir April 20th, I think, UFC on Fox 7. Gilbert Melendez getting an immediate title shot against Benson Henderson. It makes
Pettis cranky, but there's a reason. There's a reason that Gil got the shot. It might have something to do with deserving. It might have to do with the fact that it was a real easy two-step. Easier than Pettis was actually.
Pettis has to get past Donald Cerrone, which is no joke. And Pettis had his chance last year. If he had just shot his mouth off when Frankie Edgar was shooting his mouth off for a rematch. Dana said later if Pettis had just piped up, he would have had the title shot. But he was quiet. Frankie Edgar was loud. Frankie Edgar got a rematch. So Pettis has learned some lessons. He's learned, you can't fight off your back in the UFC, and he lost that decision to Clay Guida. And he's learned you got to talk some shit and get out in front of people. This
squeaky
is
wheel,
entertainment business.
Grease, squeaky wheel. It works, And go ahead.
Well, the other factor here is they don't want to fuck this up. They want that champion versus champion match. It's an easy sell on Fox. They can say Gilbert Melendez, Strikeforce champ, Benson Henderson, UFC champ, and never the twain will meet until now. And if they let the UFC lightweight division is too competitive, they don't want to have another situation like Nick Diaz where he comes over and lost the decision to Carlos Condit, and now they're having to give him a title shot anyway because that's the fight people want to see. Melendez is not as charismatic by a long shot as Nick Diaz. Nevertheless, he's got what rub he does have is because he's got that Strikeforce belt, so he needs to. He needs to get his title shot while he's still the Strikeforce champ and hasn't lost in the UFC. And not that I'm saying he's going to lose in the UFC. It's just a very real risk against that. The UFC lightweight division is murder.
He's a friend of Knuckle Up, so I have a predisposition, a superstition. I gotta back the guys who have taken the time to give me time. But that is a hell of a fight. However, he does have the benefit of knowing it was coming. There is some question. I'm here local, and so there is some real question about whether, begging off of the Pat Healy thing was as a result of injury or not. People have made. I do not extend that because I know the guy's a beast for training, and he actually was not training. And he wasn't doing that for sure. It wasn't like he was sneaking in after midnight to train, So, but, he's got focus. He's got the team. These guys are hungry or as hungry as anybody that I've trained with. The question marks I have about Gil are not question marks that I think will be allowed to continue to exist about Gil, which is the kind of tendency that team has toward
self-sabotage.
No, well. No. I wasn't even going. Gil has not said, but he's made.
No, it's true. He's a total pro.
Yeah, every single step he's made has been the exact right step. But they have a tendency in his last fight with Josh Thompson, which is what I'm referencing, which was a controversial decision. Many thought that Josh should have won that. Was that he had a game plan, and I guess the adaptability.
Yep, the old failure to adjust mid-fight.
Correct.
We've accused Caesar's camp of that before.
Correct. And now, which
Tell me that's your dog, right quick.
That is my dog.
Okay. Just want everybody to know those hideous noises are not coming out of Eugene. That is his adorable.
I guess I can't sleep.
Bulldog.
Yeah, the American Bulldog. Yeah. So the history. What do they say? The history is written by the victors. I mean, if these guys win, not deviating, people go, well, we had a game plan, we stuck to it. That's what the key to victory was that. But sometimes things are different from inside the cage than they do from outside the cage. But at this point, like, they know this is coming. They got ample film. They know what kind of guy he is, and I think it'll be actually a great matchup. That's why my hand wringing about 2013 has stopped, because they have enough marquee events during the year to actually make this a pretty good year, and that's one of them.
And I really like fans getting to see Benson Henderson on Fox twice. I think they saw him once. I think they saw a great fight against Nate Diaz. I assume people liked what they saw. It did well in the ratings. I think they're going to love seeing Benson Henderson against Gilbert Melendez. I think you're going to get a lot of repeat business on Fox because of people who are now Benson Henderson fans or want to see him get his face knocked in.
I got a question for you, since you've seen the list, and I've actually not gotten my hands on the list. Did George Masvidal make it over?
He was not on the list, and
That's crazy.
So this is a list of Strikeforce guys that are headed over. I can run through that right quick for you and other fans that have not been caught up on it. I don't have it in front of me. But Fajal, Rafael Cavalcanti, and George Masvidal are the two biggest unknowns out there besides Josh Barnett. Those are the two guys that weren't mentioned. Fajal has been suspended because he failed a drug test after the Mike Kyle fight, which was turned into a no contest, and Masvidal's injured and pulled out of the Pat Healy fight. It might be that he's in the doghouse for that decision, but my bet is that he'll get his chance either on Bellator or as a late substitute in the UFC. I think
Masvidal should get a chance because he was injured going into the Gill fight, and he fought the fight with a broken hand. So this is not a guy who's dogging fight. I mean, if the contention is that he's ducking this fight like Gill did, because he doesn't want to be the last guy on a sinking ship. And, look, that's crazy. I interviewed the guy a few weeks ago, and the guy wants to fight. If he says he's injured, I gotta believe that he's injured.
I mean, that was a good opportunity for him, and I don't think he was ducking Pat Healy by any way, shape, or form. Not that Pat Healy isn't a stone badass, but I'm just saying so is George Masvidal, and there's no reason to think. But nevertheless, the UFC has a very tight roster now, and there's only so many spaces on the boat, and they're going to give the guys who did step up and who were able to fight for whatever reasons, they're going to get that opportunity. Plus, you had a couple guys like Kurt Hollabaugh who lost to Pat Healy, but he's getting a chance in the UFC because he fought impressively. So you can't really begrudge.
A loss is not always a defeat. I mean, we've been able to see that the guy who fought, Maldonado in his fight against Teixeira, he may not fight again in the UFC, but that guy is like a national hero in Brazil now, I'll
have to take your word for it. I have not seen him.
Well, if national hero means people have sex with you and give you drinks, I guess he's a national hero.
Well, that sounds good to me. It sounds like something that everyone should experience in their lifetime, but probably won't get the chance. Yeah, I think the big question mark is Fajal and Masvidal. Those are the only two guys. Let me go ahead and pull up the list of Strikeforce fighters that are headed over, and we can run through it. Apologies for not being better prepared in my role as the play-by-play man.
There are a lot of guys who fought on some of the whole Challenger series, who came up through the ranks. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to them. I'm kind of curious. they're not done, but I guess it means that they need to compete or make the entry into the UFC some other way. And my panicking about the Ultimate Fighter TV show, I don't know if you got a chance to read or to see on a Knuckle Up, the interview with Kogan, but he turned my whole head around with this idea that, when I'm thinking like, that the UFC has to get fighter development, they've got to get, they've got to get beyond the show as a way to accelerate fight, to develop fight talent. And he's like, that's one vehicle, you know. How many fighters how many fighters are on that show, and how many fighters from that show are actually in the UFC? The UFC is getting plenty of fighters from plenty of different places, you know. So, did you say many?
I said not many.
Not many, yeah.
But I think it's such an opportunity cost, though, because for every fighter that you promote on FX to anywhere from 700,000 to 1 million viewers a week that doesn't make the roster, that's a fighter you could have been promoting that will make your roster. You know, for every Efren Escudero that doesn't pan out, you've got a Evan Dunham that didn't get the exposure on the major cable outlet, and so you know that's the cost they have to calculate there. But let's turn it back to Bellator right quick, because I want to talk about the event they've got coming up tomorrow night with Michael Chandler and Rick Hahn in the lightweight title fight, and they've also got Ronaldo Babalu Sobral making his Bellator debut. I love that guy. Babalu too. I've loved him for a long time. I had a disappointing run in Strikeforce when he got murked by Musasi and Dan Henderson both.
Come on, man!
I mean, that's tough competition, you know. But I think a younger Babalu would have done a lot better against those guys.
Yeah, maybe.
But
I got thrashed by King Kong and Mighty Joe Young. You know, what am I gonna do?
You're gonna train harder, Eugene. That's what you're gonna do.
I gotta train harder. I mean, I know guys who train with Henderson. It's like it's not like going light. There's no going light day.
No, from everything I've heard, Henderson is a sort of a supernatural being. He's an incredibly strong guy. A number of people, including heavyweights, have said that's the strongest human being I've ever tied up with.
I heard that too. And he hits very hard.
Incredibly hard, and can take a punch. And the other fight, a big fight, is the featherweight championship fight with Pat Curran and Patricio Freire, better known as Pitbull, or he's Pitbull's brother. I can't remember what nickname they call him on the show. But his brother, the lightweight, is the guy that lost to Eddie Alvarez in Alvarez's last fight. And
I like Pat Curran. So.
Yeah, Pat Curran really impressed a lot of people in his run for the lightweight title, which he didn't make. He lost to Eddie Alvarez, moved down to featherweight, won the tournament, won the title fight. Very impressive cat. I like Freire, but I think Curran's got it. But the point I wanted to make, though, is they've got a pretty set card coming up, and then they've got another one next week with Ben Askren defending his title, and but then the third week it falls off a little bit. I'm just wondering, you know, like I know you're a busy dude. You travel, you work, you got kids. Are you going to be making time to watch Bellator live this season, or are you going to be catching on
you know, well, I don't have a television.
Stream it on your computer, son.
Yeah, right. So I'm going to watch stuff on the computer. But yeah, if I can find it, I will watch it. You know, and this is why I was cursing in some past show. It's like, you know, the media, you've created these vehicles to get this stuff. You can get it here, you can get it there, and I can't get it anywhere. You know, because that just means I have a number of different formats. It's not working on the laptop, it's not working on the house computer, it's not working on the phone. I go over to somebody else's house, it's not working on the I can't get any of it, you know. So but I will, if I can watch it, I'm always watching. I prefer to watch it live. And if not, you know, at the event, if not there, then live televised. And if not live televised, then, you know, post facto. But I'll be watching. I'm an addict, hardcore, stone cold addict. I will be watching unless I hate the guy, and then I still watch. You know.
Yep. Then you really watch. Those are my favorite fights to watch. Yeah. Next week we not only have Ben Askren defending his title against Carl Amasu, we've got King Mo making his Bellator debut.
Which is what Yep.
Against Prismslav Miasala. Sorry, my apologies to the man and his family. I can't pronounce his name.
Premslav. Everybody, yeah. All the W's are V's.
You spent more time in Europe than I have. Eastern European virgin here, sadly. Well, you have to, when you're being chased down the streets, you need to. Yes. Sounds like a good life skill. Anyway, I think the takeaway is things are looking pretty good for Bellator. I'm very excited to see how they do on Spike TV. They've got a lot of good fights, and you know they've got this feud with Eddie Alvarez going. And you know, Kogan, the sports manager, was telling you that he didn't think that was going to chase fighters away from Bellator. That they're going to interpret that as Eddie Alvarez fucked up. I'm not going to fuck up, and I can deal with these guys. I'm going to take the best deal I can get. I mean, his art again. It was. I mean, there are not many interviews where stuff happens that I don't expect to happen.
and Kogan opened my eyes to.
You were putty in his hands, Eugene. I was watching that one and wanting to intervene. Don't look at his eyes, Eugene.
Yeah.
Don't look at his eyes.
Well, you have to know with an agent that the guy is first and foremost always on the job, But the things he said objectively, and I've been thinking about it since then, about Brunson. It's kind of right,
I think he was dead right about Brunson. I think Brunson did what he had to do, and I think he'll be back anyway. I think Dana White shitting on you is not the end of the world if you won your fight.
Correct.
Joe Silva's going to bring you back. But real quick, let's talk about the Chandler Hahn fight, and then move on to the UFC coming up this Saturday. What do you think about Chandler and Hahn? I'm a big fan of Rick Hahn, a judo Olympian. He's got good. I wouldn't say he's got polished striking, but he hits hard as fuck. He's got good technique. What he uses, he doesn't throw a lot of fancy combinations, incredible throws, incredible clinch work, great defensive wrestling. Who you like in that fight? You think Hahn's the man to knock off Chandler?
Well, when you look at judo guys who make the transition, and I train with a couple of judo guys who have made the transition. Judo is a phenomenal martial art. You look at Carol Parisian. Mm-hmm. You look at Roddy Ferguson, American top team guy who's done a few MMA fights. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say I'd love to see Dr. Ferguson continue his MMA career. I think
I would as well.
Incredibly talented. But,
he is hardcore, real deal.
Super talented. But it's been a while since we've heard from him. He's also Kimbo Slice's cousin.
That's right. Which I asked Kimbo Slice about. I asked Ferguson. I interviewed him. That's kind of a phenomenal. So we don't see each other much.
Who sees their cousins that often?
That's right.
I'm sure they're friends on Facebook.
Yeah, they're Facebook friends. So it's been a mixed bag about how Ronda Rousey. It's not been so much of a mixed bag. She's done really well, but the pick was for Chandler and knuckle up. Kogan picked Chandler. So that's the most exciting fighter he could think about. He's seeing guys all the time, and I asked him that question, and the name that popped first and foremost to his head, Mike Chandler, and he doesn't even rep the guy. So this is
Chandler's very good. That fight against Alvarez was
of course,
an all-time classic. That was an incredible war. Nearly got knocked out, came back to finish Alvarez. One of the best fights you'll see anywhere. I think he's got the edge over Hahn. I think the one thing about judokas, the people you named, Carol Parisian, Manny Gambarian, Ronda Rousey, they all have one thing in common. They came from Gokor. How do you say his last name?
Whatever.
They came from Gokor's camp, and they trained under Gene LaBelle, and those guys have adapted their judo very, very well to MMA. Manny doesn't do the judo throws like Caro did, but both of those guys have been very successful in MMA. And Hahn is coming from a different place. He's an Olympian. I can't fault him for not training with crazy Armenians. That's just not where he came from, not who he knows. He trains with great people. I'm just saying.
He doesn't need the radios.
No, he does not need the radios. And he's busted
Last
out
5
some,
Armenian guys trying to sell me radios, so it's stuck in my mind now.
I've had some interactions with some Armenians. They were always interesting. Right up there with the Greeks and the Lebanese and the Israelis as far as tough, wily traders.
Hagglers.
Yes.
And sellers of transistor radios.
Yes, but regardless, I think Hahn's going to do good, but not great, and I think Chandler is just a mighty big hill to overcome. But let's turn our sights to the UFC on FX this weekend. Yes. Michael Bisping versus Vitor Belfort. Bisping could get a title shot if he wins. Belfort has no such promise on the line. Can Vitor Belfort play spoiler? What do you think?
I think he's certainly going to try. I think he really needs to. But I don't know that he can pull it off. I'm laughing right now because I'm thinking about Hector Lombard trying to gin up a fight that's not even his fight.
I know.
A countryman anticipating that it's going to go in favor of Bisping and putting himself in line saying, I don't know what it is. I met the guy by the elevator. I thought I was shaking the hand of a young girl.
Yeah, Hector's been spewing some bile at a lot of people. At former opponents, he's gone out of his way to trash Uzumar Palhares, who he already beat in the ring. Usually guys beat a guy in the ring and they leave in the cage, and they leave it in the cage, not Hector.
Oh, no, this is full on Shinya Aoki-esque.
Yes.
I'm going to flip the bird to the guy whose arm I just broke and the entire audience.
Yes,
You
Hector
know,
is a hater, and that's one of the things I like about him. The
hate,
guy is.
hate, hate, hate. I love it.
Yes, I do too. And so Hector, the deal is Hector's set to fight Yushin Okami at the next UFC in Japan.
Right,
That's a tough hurdle for anybody.
right.
Uh, Okami's one of the biggest guys in the middleweight division, former title challenger, tough as they get.
Coming off a
Lombard,
win.
yeah, coming off of a win, and Lombard is looking right past him and shit talking Michael Bisping as hard as he can. He's calling Bisping names, talking about little girl hands.
He's infuriating two guys. I mean, he's got some nuclear bomb smack where you can infuriate more than just the guy you're fighting.
Yep. You're pissing off the guy you're talking about and the guy you're not talking about.
That's right. So I mean, but in any case, it uncovers. Brazilians are in rare cases, like a lot of guys.
Hector's Cuban. Let's not forget.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. That's right.
Hector's Cuban.
I'm sorry.
By way of Australia. So
That's
we
right.
can make some disparaging remarks about the Aussies while we're at it.
Oh man! All right, so he's to a manner born then, right? That's right.
When it comes to shit talking, the Aussies, have their own rep.
Yeah.
I think they've carved out a worldwide reputation.
Well, it's a quick step to fist fighting, so as you would expect from a penal colony. But
yes.
I mean this for me, this fight is fraught with all kinds of like special literary significance.
Bisping Belfort fight.
Yeah, Bisping Belfort, especially since I hated Bisping for his robbery of Matt Hamill, but he is actually ended up being, like I said, we were talking last week, this kind of, I've got this great amount of, it's beyond pathos to me now. It's bathos, because how are you going to take a guy who's 32 and tell him he's finished, I mean, like the guy who showed up at Henry Rollins' house with the account payable, account receivable thing, the executive from Imago, said, it's over. What do you mean it's over? I mean, nobody ever came to a painter and said, it's over. Yeah, like I got a brush, I got some ink, I can still make the thing, it's over. So Bisping is just like, yesterday's man, this forgotten guy. It's like Dana's very much in a position, and it probably largely has to do with the size of the truck. Again, he had to back up to when he was putting money into this guy to build the UK promotion. Mm-hmm. But he's now in a position like, you know what? The UK thing is not really happening. You prove it, It's up
Absolutely.
to you. It's your fate solely in your hands now. So
and
it'll
also
be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how. In each and every, I've become sort of a Bisping favorer, not a fan, but a favorer, because each time he's come back, you can see he's gone and done homework.
The guy has improved in the cage remarkably. I first started noticing it against Dennis Kang when he put on an incredible grappling and wrestling exhibition against a guy who was supposed to be the better grappler, and he's continued in that vein in his recent fights. I thought he beat Chael Sonnen personally.
He did beat Chael Sonnen, and the Puerto Rican guy.
Decision though.
The Puerto Rican guy he punched in the nuts. That was more the old Bisping.
That's the old Bisping, but I thought that was a championship punch in the nuts. I thought that was a Larry Bird punch in the nuts.
Oh,
yeah. That was a GSP punch in the nuts. That was big time punch in the nuts. That wasn't a bitch punch in the nuts. That was a
he just went all out.
Yeah.
He decided a 100-foot cliff dive into nut punching. I'm gonna take it, So okay, so I'm actually pulling for him, just because for emotional reasons, I guess. I mean, Vitor is great. Vitor could go to the grocery store. They would cart him to the grocery store on one of those big, what do they call those things? Not the panjandrum, the thing you put on the shoulder with the.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I don't know the word for this, but. Let's see, shoulder-mounted hand.
Oh, it's got a word. It's what the Mao made when they his so-called Great March. It turns out Mao was carried, and when when people died from carrying him, he would kind of look out because he had all of his books in there as he was reading and lounging and eating sweetmeats, and you'd see like some 12-year-old boy who had died carrying him and said, "Hey, could you get somebody else in there, please?"
The chairman's got to focus. He's got to focus.
He's got what?
Plans to write.
Every time I hear Maoism, I understand it completely as meism.
You can't argue with his success. You might argue with his casualties, but
70 mil. Well, hey, look, people still think he's a cultural hero, and I finally figured out why with Mao. You know why?
Why is that?
Because he took the trouble to be photographed smiling.
You think if Joe Stalin had done more smiling in his photos that he would be, well, actually, shit, in Russia, Joe Stalin's pretty well remembered.
He's well remembered. He made a funny face at some point. There's one famous photo of him with doing something funny, you know, probably like about to send somebody to a show trial or something. But, you know, no pictures of Hitler smiling. You know, Franco, no really pictures of him smiling. Mussolini, his speeches were full of laughter, but, so I think Vitor Belfort could go to Brazil and get carried back and forth to the store, people with flowers and garlands before his feet. I mean, emotionally, fighting to him is an amusement. It's a hobby. It's like, like BJ Penn, it's like golf. If I golfed, I'd do that. This is kind of an idle amusement for me, a bauble. I'm just making guesses and assumptions about how much money he's made. I know Vitor has been on TV. He's been on films. I know what the royalty rates for some of that stuff is like. I mean, I'm not saying that the fire's gone out of it for him, but he's been doing this since he's 18,
Yeah, and he's also, Vitor Belfort, I'm sure he's broken your heart a couple of times. I've learned my lesson about rooting for Vitor Belfort.
Yes.
Dude's going to let you down. Dude's got a pretty face. He's got a real sweet left hand.
Yep.
Dude will let you down. He will find a way to disappoint you and let you down.
We don't even have to go that far. Clear your mind for a second and think about the last time that the Phenom did anything phenomenal.
He nearly broke John Jones's arm.
Yeah, but he Vitor Belforted. Vitor Belforted was way out of that, man.
It's true. It's true. He let go of the hold. He heard it snap and he let go.
Hart won that exchange,
Yep.
I mean, it's not like Matt Hughes with Hoist having to make the decision: am I going to break the arm of a legend? And then deciding, negatory. I will not do this. He heard the crack at that point. In for a penny, in for a pound. Why not?
Yeah, hang on and get that tap, get that win. But he backed off of that, and it is what it is. And now Bisping, I think Bisping's. However, having said that, Belfort is very, very, very dangerous for Michael Bisping.
Yep.
He throws fast. He throws hard. He's not really a skilled technical boxer, no matter what you might say. Jack Slack just ripped his boxing to bits on Bloody Elbow this weekend.
Yep.
But, Belfort doesn't do any of the things the expert striking tacticians like Anderson Silva or Lyoto Machida or even Costa Philippou will do. He doesn't use footwork to get angles. He doesn't set up counters. He doesn't feint. He doesn't bait you into mistakes.
No.
He doesn't do elaborate combinations. He gets in your face. He throws jackhammer straight punches right at your chin. And that's all. That's what he does. And it's well enough for him to be possibly a future Hall of Famer. So.
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, the thing
Borderline.
The thing is, this is like the train. There's the train to Auschwitz. They stop for a water break. Bisping has some serious stuff in his future. This is. I mean, he might really want to question what he's rushing toward.
Did you really compare the trajectory of Michael Bisping's career to a train to Auschwitz? I'm afraid I've got to apologize on behalf of myself, Vox Media, Bloody Elbow, Eugene's family. I've got to apologize on behalf of the members of Oxbow, your lovely daughters. Your dog is apologizing for that, Eugene. That was terrible. This is why you got to subscribe to MMA Nation and see this shit live, folks, because I'm too lazy to edit it out, but I'm shaking my finger.
Yeah, I've been doing this since I was 13. You realize there was Mike. Mike Tyson.
60 now. Wait.
No, 50. 50. Come on.
That's 37 years. A mere 37 years of experience.
Here you go. Here's a little fun fact. Do you remember Mike Tyson's Street Gang?
No, I don't. I remember that he was a street gangster. I don't remember the name of his gang.
He was in a feared street gang.
I would expect.
Called the Jolly Stompers, right?
The Jolly Stompers. That's a pretty good name.
And in 8th grade, I was new in the school. This girl, she's 13. Her boyfriend was a Jolly Stomper and came by with 10 other gang members to pick her up from school. He was 19. And she's like, oh, and I'm looking at, and these guys have like chains and sticks. I'm looking out the window, but I'm irked because, what? Tough guys. So tough guys. And then she goes, oh, I know that guy, and I go, no, that guy, and that guy. And I look at her, and I go, really? And she goes, yeah. And I go, how much do you cost?
Oh.
This was like at 2:59. She was sobbing hysterically. The bell rings. All of her friends run outside, and I'm looking out the window, and I see these guys with chains and sticks circling the building.
Oh,
oh man.
Oh,
It's
Eugene.
like, whoo! Nobody loves a critic.
So how'd you get out of that, Eugene?
I didn't run. I've had my pride. I went into the bathroom and drew my feet up on the toilet bowl and stayed there for about 2 hours until I could get home. Until I could get home. And at that point, that was probably my last day as a man unarmed. So every day, I wasn't going to take the okie doke. So at that point, every day I was armed. So,
yikes.
I never got caught, never got beaten for my faux pas. So, but anyway, my point is Bisping has got a terrible, terrible future ahead of him no matter what. You know, no matter what.
Oh, I mean, he's got a potential title fight, even though I don't like his chances against Anderson Silva at all.
Yeah.
It's a big payday. He's going to have a hell of a lot of fun shit-talking before the fight.
Well, what I'm saying is he's done.
Yeah, and then he's going to get humiliated in the cage, and that's that. You know, he's got to think that he's got some shot. He's a smart dude. He's a tough guy. He's got a lot of pride. He's going to be
Anderson Silva?
He's got to be thinking that there's some way I can do this.
There's not enough medical marijuana to get the guy to get his mind around that. I don't know. Seriously, I mean, I feel sorry for the guys in that division. There's got to be a key, but I don't think Bisping has it, man.
I don't know. I don't either. I mean, God knows.
I mean,
unless Anderson Silva has just radically slowed down, which is going to happen at some point. Anderson Silva will not be Anderson Silva anymore, and that will happen, and that'll happen in the next 3 years.
That's true. That could be true. That could be true. And you know, but the problem is, Chael Sonnen's showing against Anderson Silva has kind of put the zap on people's minds. You know, I mean, so that I'm seeing guys say, look how effective Sonnen was with this kind of, you know, this aggressive takedown, you know, mount grab, you know, but you gotta know that's not gonna, you know, that's just an entry. You know, you be better instead of looking at Chael. Look at what Velasquez did to Dos Santos for a key. But even that is not. You know, we're not talking. This is a totally different thing. Totally different animal. Totally different.
Yeah. Bisping has no shot. But I think just getting to that point where you get that UFC title shot, it's not going to happen in England like it would have a few years ago, which is too bad for Bisping. But I think it's a hell of an accomplishment just to get to step into the octagon with Anderson Silva. That's something you're going to be able to tell your grandkids about, and you know, I think that.
Okay. Would they, if they offered that to you, is that something that you would be looking for?
Well, sure, because nobody's going to offer that to me. I can take that all day long.
You know, I realized how.
If I was a professional fighter and I was in the UFC, fuck yeah, I'd take that. I mean, shit. What's he going to do? Kill you and disembowel you and eat your organs in front of your family?
Yes.
Maybe metaphorically, but not literally.
No, you know, I would take it, and I would have to take it. But it would be, my marching music would maybe be more like Albini's at that point. You know, I'm not saying that I think that.
That's Goryecki's Symphony of Sadness, Symphony Number 3, by the way.
Goreski, yeah. So I'll give you an example of what it is that I mean. I didn't become a good fighter until I gave up all hope. You know, I was just getting beat because I was 265, and let's get the big guys, beat, and people kept telling me relax. I didn't know what they meant until finally, like, they had me fight. Some pro guy, and I just said, man. Oh, how's that?
You're back. Keep talking. You just said, man.
Yeah.
You're fighting some pro guy, and
some pro guy, and the guy just savagely beat me. And at the point at which I sort of relaxed into to make gains as a fighter when I start to relax. But I mean, I'm not talking about fighting in front of 20,000 people. Anderson Silva. I don't know. I'm looking for the key that will be his undoing, and I haven't seen it yet. And you know, outside of his will and his desire, man,
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
No, I mean, I
And
think
his will and his desire doesn't cover, like, he may not, it'll cover him making a mistake. You know, when I did the fight book, I challenged Evander Holyfield to a fight, you know, as part of the book, and he laughed at me, and I was like, what? You laugh all you want, man. I'll just say that you were too scared, that you were a scared coward and you don't want to do it. He was like, yeah, okay. And I go, okay, that's what I'm writing. So we're driving, and he's showing me some combination. We were talking about the Tyson fight, and he's just sitting at the wheel of his Escalade or whatever it was, and showing me some hand combination, and his hands were faster, just casually illustrating something than I could be if I set out to show you the fastest hand movement I was capable of. I mean, we're talking about. I'm sounding like Joe Rogan when he was talking about Brock Lesnar, but in this instance, it's true. So I don't, you know, my feelings of sympathy for Bisping will continue, you know, but I mean, he's going to have to do something really magical the next two fights to have anything close to approximating a career in the next 5 years, you know, if that's even what he wants.
But I mean, I don't know. I think Yushin Okami still has a career. I think Bisping is somebody who's popular enough with UFC fans. He beats Belfort. He gets a title shot. Let's say he loses. I think there'll be demand to see Bisping. I think there'll be room on FX cards for him, on pay-per-view cards.
Do you consider a career if Okami is making $20,000 a fight and somebody else is making $400,000 a fight? Does Okami have what you would call a career?
Sure, he doesn't have a great career, but he has a career, and you know.
Right. Okay.
I mean, you know,
yeah.
life's not fair, and you know, if Bisping likes.
That's right. According to Ian Mackay,
yeah. Bisping.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
and my mom.
Your mom's a fighter.
No, my mom says life isn't fair. I'm just saying that.
Okay, all right.
Ian did not originate that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, he did.
So he's got plenty of quotes that I think are unique to him. Life's not fair is not one of those.
Yeah, right. No, that's a standard. So I mean, the thing is, that's sort of why we love the sport, because it deals with the concrete and it deals with finality, and it somehow is us again flipping the bird to our finiteness as humans, you know. But it's just hard sometimes to see it up close and personal. And this is strange for me to be saying, because I don't even really like Bisping, but I'm identifying with his struggle and his placement, you know. I mean, sometimes life will show you exactly how good you are, and that's never a good thing.
I mean, pretty much, unless you're Stevie Wonder, and even then, certain limitations will apply.
Or P. Diddy. P. Diddy seems to have it pretty good, you know.
P. Diddy's got a lot of limitations, man. P. Diddy's.
I don't know.
Don't start me on P. Diddy. The guy coasted off Biggie's talent, clearly. And Schoolie D did Cashmere first, for fuck's sake.
Well, hold on. Yeah, you're right. But, however, I think there's a line that P. Diddy has. He says, any woman mess me, believe me, that's a privilege. And I was like, oh, that conceited piece of... And I was like, well, wait a minute.
Wait, repeat that.
I don't know
because you broke up a little bit.
I guess statistic...
Repeat it.
Oh, he's got a line.
You broke up when you were saying the P. Diddy quote.
P. Diddy's got a line. He says, any woman messing with me, believe me, that's a privilege. And I was like, oh, that conceited piece of... And I go, wait a minute. How many other billionaires do you know? He's probably actually right. Statistically speaking, he's right. You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The ladies are lining up. The ladies are lining up for P. Diddy, regardless of what we think of his rapping.
I wonder if...
And I'll give him props for his production skills.
I wonder if he was throwing parties in the basement of community centers, if people were lining up then at that point, before the luxury vodka and the shirt, the well-respected shirt line and a TV show.
I bet some keen-eyed young ladies that were able to look ahead, look down the road, saw that this guy was a player and that he was going places. I think I imagine they started lining up pretty early for P. Diddy. Yeah. But anyway,
we got down the P. Diddy road. So the Bisping thing has a lot of weird emotional resonance for me, and it's a fight I'm really actually sort of excited about, because neither one of those guys are going to be fighting in 5 years. Or Dan Severn just retired. Let's not let this moment pass. So they could be fighting in 5 years, but they won't be fighting on fights that you're seeing. You know?
No, they will. I will not be paying attention. I will not be paying attention to that fight. Well, we've chewed up our time, as we are wont to do, because we both like to chew and talk, and so it's been a hoot, Eugene, and thanks for joining me. Everybody, remember to subscribe to MMA Nation on YouTube to get these things live.
Hold on, I have to say for everybody who has made it this far, we had the aborted show that we done earlier in the day, and in that show, in the intro, Nate massacred again. The title of the book, which is great. I don't want you to think this is like, it's like that scene with Sacha Baron Cohen when he's like as Borat, he's like, what is this? Cheese. What is this? Cheese. What is this? And he goes through 46 varieties of cheese, asking the guy what it is. The guy says cheese. You can't stop now. You have got to continue.
My co-host has been Eugene S. Robinson, author of Fight. Everything you always wanted to know about fighting, but were afraid you'd get your ass kicked for asking. How is that?
I don't know. I was laughing too hard.
I nailed it that time, and
I think you may have nailed it, man.
I did nail it. Nail it, and I'm gonna even do it again with a note. And I'm gonna say, Eugene, author of Fight. Everything you ever wanted to know about ass kicking, but were afraid you'd get your ass kicked for asking. Published by HarperCollins. I just bought it on my Kindle and have been rereading it actually. The first time I read it, I didn't know you as well, and I was skipping over the parts about Eugene. And now you've converted me into sort of a Eugene fan, and I'm reading the parts where you're talking about yourself.
What is that jerk off? I don't need this stuff. Give me the fight stuff.
Exactly. I was kind of Tank Abbott. Yeah. Eugene.
Actually, my favorite part of the book is some guy came up to me. I did a book tour. Came up to me on a book tour, and he's just like looking at me. He said, "I read your book. I found it pretty upsetting." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, I was reading and enjoying it, having a great time, and then I got to that chapter, I killed a man." And I said, "Yeah, it's not all fun and games, man." He was like, and he just kind of looked at me and just walked off into the night.
Oh, you ruined somebody's worldview, Eugene.
Hey, I expanded it. So anyway, all right, good.
Well,
thanks, man.
Thank you, and we'll be back next week. Eugene will be back with Knuckle Up, and thanks everybody, and we'll see you then, and enjoy the fights this weekend.
Yes. All right, Nate. Later.
Thanks, Eugene.